Hola, audiencia, y bienvenidos hoy Dimelo Cinema Club. I am tonight's host, Jason Eccles, and I'm joined by my illustrious non-illusion castmates and reviewers of films, Don Dino Spazzini, Steve Des, Michaela Booth, and JP Sorunos. Tonight we are reviewing the 1985 film. It's a wild one. Tampopo is a Japanese flick. I just want to get straight into first impressions because this thing excites me. So we'll jump off of ladies first and then open floor discussion. Let's rock and roll, man.
Awesome. This is such a neat little film. I don't ask me what the B plot is because I think there's actually a B, C, and D plot, all of which I. But there's some beautiful cinematography. A lot of interesting concepts are played with here. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this one.
Cool, cool, cool. Who's next? Who wants to get illy with it? Some
I'll
Tampopo.
go. I'll
Go
go
for it.
because I'll go off of Michaela. You see, I think there's no A plot. I think there's like
There isn't an A plot.
all those plots, but no A plot
Yeah, the A
whatsoever.
plot is of Tampopo. That's like the only consistent
No,
story in the
that's
whole thing. That's a whole
just
storyline.
because the name
It's
is on
beginning
the.
and
That's just because. No,
beginning
no, 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 no.
and
Although I will say I love the movie. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think there's an A plot. I just think that's been like constructed. I think it's like this weird, bizarre, like just vignettes that they somehow were able to weave mostly together, or like um uh like the actual food itself. It's just everything just kind of the ramen and all that just kind of thrown in there, right? And they're all pieces of just like this perfect slurping movie that is Tampopo. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I was laughing my ass off at times. At other times, there's one part which I was like, no, that I almost like had. I was like kind of looking away, and so I hope we get into that. And let's see if we all like what was the most disturbing sequence. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I don't think I had heard of this movie at all, and it's a movie that I went in not knowing anything about it. So it kept like I kept not knowing what I was gonna get, and then yeah, every like especially for like the first half hour, I felt like every 5 minutes it was gonna be a different movie, like that it was gonna be a different genre, whether it was something like Big Trouble in Little China, just because of the whole truckers that like show up into this kind of like little neighborhood town. Like, is there gonna be problem? That kind of stuff. So anyway, I enjoyed it. Oh, I will say real quick, spoilers or just like a heads up. If you're gonna watch this movie, make sure you have eaten, because if not, you are gonna be starving. So I'm so happy I ate before I watched the movie, because I can only imagine like 90% of the movie is them just eating ramen, and I'm happy I was full when I watched the movie. That's it. That's my first impression.
All right. Who wants to jump into that? All right. Looks like JP wants to jump into that.
Literally.
Never, never before, never before has a film in my movie viewing experiences as a young man going into his third decade of life. Never has a film ever made me not only hungry, but lose my goddamn appetite within 4 minutes of sequence. Never has a film ever done.
Did it also get you horny at times, though?
So you're saying you had a reaction?
But anyways, boy, did this movie have like cutaways that's our mic. Never has a movie had so many cutaways that made like Family Guy and Willy Wonka seem consistent.
I like the Willy Wonka.
Because
That kind of makes sense. Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's like I kept turning to Kayla's like, wow, no, we kept turning to each other. It's like, where's this movie going? Where did the movie go? Where did it go? It's, to put it simply, it was an experience. I'll admit there are moments that I would never want to revisit ever again. I can't in good conscience say that I'm willing to watch this movie again just because of certain scenes and sequences.
But there's only one for me.
I could watch it 5 times in a row and come to a different conclusion, and I want to do that one day.
Oh my gosh, it's like it's crazy because you think you're gonna get like a Steve McQueen or like a spaghetti western type of film where some guy from nowhere is here to save the day. But then weird shit happens along the way that has nothing to do with that guy. Like so many times does that happen. But I loved the A storyline. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of the other stuff in it, but that's my first impression without going too into spoilers.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
well, I don't know if you could spoil this. By the way, it's like it would just be way too many things. Like even whatever we say, if people haven't seen the movie and then go watch the movie, I don't think they're gonna like be able to be like, oh my god, they were right. Oh, they weren't just shitting us, or I can't believe that actually happened. So yeah, I don't think this can be spoiled. And
yeah, I
mean,
agree. I don't think this movie goes into spoiler territory one bit because anything that you would tell someone, they're not going to remember it enough because the story is so disjointed.
They break the fourth wall in the first minute of the movie, not even. So at that point, I think everything is just like, what? You know, that's why I have my hat. My hat is homage to the one character. So go watch the movie and you'll know what we're talking about.
So, Steve, do you want to do your first impression or should I?
I'll go ahead. I want to say, so based on what everybody was saying, I maybe like I have sympathy with a lot of what everybody has said so far. But one thing I definitely have to admit is like within the first 40 to an hour, probably 45 minutes, but let's say an hour, I was very distracted. So I was very confused because unlike Dino, that he already ate, I was eating while watching the movie. And I was also doing things while watching the movie. And because this movie is in another language, you have to be reading the subtitles. And there were moments I wasn't necessarily reading the subtitles. And I was just like, what the fuck is going on right now? So I was very confused towards the very early part of the movie. But then towards once I got my focus completely in the movie and I wasn't doing nothing but watching the movie. So the next hour of the movie, I caught on and I saw all the beautiful stuff about it. And there was definitely at least a scene or two that it was a little cringy for me. But yeah, we'll talk about that and later. And yeah, I'm going to at least the first, I guess, 40 minutes of the movie. I'm gonna kind of put that puzzle together based on what you guys say because
Yeah.
yeah.
I think
For sure.
I'm still putting it together.
Yeah.
Even reading it, I think even if you spoke Japanese and understood it, it would be confusing for its 40
Yeah,
minutes.
it would be
for
hard
sure.
to explain this movie and put it together for anyone. So I'll do my first impression. When I first started watching this movie, I gotta say it had me from the first camera movement. I was like, "Ooh, we're about to get something interesting. Like that's not a normal camera movement to open a movie. Like, what's happening?" It's like, "Oh, this is like a gangster flick," and then I was like, "Oh, it's a comedy," and I wasn't quite sure what it was. But then when the girl licked his finger in the opening scene, I was like, "Oh, this movie's okay. This is going to be dangerous because this is 1985 in Japan." So I was like, "Okay, what's about to happen?" And then it feels like another story starts with like a cowboy coming into town, and I guess you can tie that into the gangster movie in some way. Um, but then there's like other genres of film in here too, man, and it's weird and it's bizarre, and there's like these vignettes in between the A story, which I do believe there is an A story, the about the food, that's the A story. But then there's the rest of it, just these little scenes, these little sketches, and it kind of feels like Kentucky Fried the movie, or maybe like a little bit like Airplane in a way. It's
Yeah.
just got this like disjointed sort of thing that it does. And all these scenes are funny. And it feels like maybe they're even by different writers because there's levels and like there's one really dark comedic one in there, man. And just like I was like, what? Duh. It was brilliant and it was funny and it was so dark. The mother scene is what I'm referring to, cooking the last
Yeah.
meal. And it's like, wow, what is happening? Um, but I never for 1 second of watching this thing was ever disinterested. Every scene kept me wondering what's going to happen next. What's going to happen next? And I have no clue how this thing is going to end. I hope there's a happy ending. But I wasn't sure of anything or how this movie would like resolve itself. And all I can say is that the filmmaker, this movie loves food. It loves food. It honors food the entire film, and it's really a movie about food, if nothing else, and our relationship to it. It's pretty wonderful in that regard. So yeah, I love the movie. I think it's brilliant. I wasn't sure how I felt about it when I first started watching it, but then by like the third act, I was like, wait a minute, I see what you're doing. It's a herald. The movie's kind of a
Yeah.
herald, in 1985. So
Well,
that's my first
there
take.
was there
No,
was a lot. Well, anyway, I don't know if
I
you
agree.
where you're trying to take the conversation. Is there a place you're trying to go? 'Cause
No,
just like
that's my first impression. You're free to speak.
free speech. Um, so just funny wise, there was one moment where I was getting a little distracted. My brother was texting me, and there was this huge soccer game in Paraguay, and he was like sending me the link, and I was like, I'm watching this movie, I gotta read, but it's a big game. And then I kind of look up, and it's like, I was like, is that a nipple? And then there was the salt and then lemon on the nipple, which I'm just like, what? And after that, I was like, I basically threw my phone away. I was like, I cannot miss a single thing from this movie because why? I've never tried that. And that's maybe when you said Airplane, it made me think of Hot Shots. Because they do that in Hot Shots when they have the sex scene and they open the fridge and they have they bring out the pizza and the olives,
right.
and it just starts to escalate.
Yeah.
So at that moment I was like, oh, this movie is wild. This movie is everything I thought about this movie. At this point, I'm just gonna enjoy the ride. I was just like, let me strap in. I had no idea. So there's that. But then you talking also about the Herald part was the movie starts with breaking the fourth wall. It's like in the movie theater. So it's like this weird postmodern thing. It kind of had a little bit. Is it The Last Dragon? What is Bruce Leroy, right? Like the bad guy in the movie theater, which is weird because he's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I want to watch movies, and he has his like henchmen, and they're beating up people that are. So there's that, and then you see the truckers, and then the Watanabe, is a young trucker, and he's reading to the to Goro, so that as like entertainment. So then you're seeing the cutscenes of what he's reading, and so then throughout the movie, at the end of the day, what's movie? What is book? Is there even what is real? Is there reality in the movie itself? That's
Yeah,
kind of my question.
100%.
There isn't, and that's what makes it so wonderful, that anything and everything can happen. And it's just like, and the intention that is behind the camera, that is so obvious. It's just such a treat. Like, how can you come up with something that feels so random, but every single shot is just filled with intention? Like, that really impressed me. And like, there's just so many beautiful things that like really do like go to the edge of like what is beauty, what is cringe, and like it's such a like physical feeling.
Yeah.
Which is just like, it's really exciting when you can find art like that. I find it really exciting.
No, that's good. I mean, when Jason said that this honored food, I want to add an asterisk to it.
But like,
no. It does show food in all its beauty, both natural, unnatural, fetish, semi-smut. Yeah.
GP, like it's a physical thing though. Like, it's beautiful.
I mean, there's
beauty in it, and that's why you're so frustrated.
There's beauty.
Like, you can see the beauty in it, but it makes you uncomfortable. And there's like so many moments in that film where it's just, and like the whole process of eating is like that too, because eventually it turns to shit.
Oh,
so it's
God.
just
That was funny because it turns to doo-doo.
Yeah, I would say that's a great like tagline for this movie. It's beautiful, but it's uncomfortable. And I feel like that's the entire ride of the movie. You don't want to miss one of the scenes in this thing because something odd happens even through just conversation. It's a bizarre story, but it's awesome, and there's a lot to be gleaned from it too. Like all the little parables are in there. The mother starts having more confidence, and the community thus starts having a little bit more confidence, and then the little boy has enough confidence to fight back his bullies. You know what I mean? And then like they're kind of like manifested their life by staying positive, and then all these people gathered around them to help build their life. I thought that was very sweet too. That was very like Full Houseian 3 men and a baby, takes a village type thing.
It definitely takes a village, for sure. Because then even the little kid, like he like fights back with the bullies, and then they become his friends, or like he even becomes the leader. I forget, I don't know exactly, but it was one of those like, oh man, but yeah, and so then just the idea, there was a lot of the sensei and the teach me and the whatever, and just that first, because I would be totally fine. So this is my other thing, like I would have been fine with whichever of the like A, B, C, D, E, whichever one they would have picked and would have just made a movie of that. I would have been like, I would love it, because even just like the dude reading the book, which we don't know he's reading a book until we come out of it, if I'm not mistaken. The first time we see the young guy and the old guy, and the old guy is he's a reviewer of food or ramen or whatever, and it's like just like first you caress the ramen like with your chopsticks, just like pass it across everything, like just describing that, like. I'm glad I was full, but like that alone, just like.
Were you trying to memorize it?
I mean,
I was.
Like, did I? Like, it was like a spiritual thing.
Yeah, I was like, the next time I eat
like,
ramen, I'm going to eat it like this. I was trying to memorize it.
it was like a spiritual sexual awakening with just experiencing ramen. It was, yeah.
Yeah, and that
And all I
ramen looks
got was,
really good too.
oh my God. I'm already thinking of like when I get up to LA, Jason. Okay, hey guys that are in LA, can we all go out to get some ramen and we have a camera and we try out the steps that were in the book of like caressing the ramen and then just poking it gently, you know. Can we are we good? Are we good? Are we good?
You know, out of all the scenes regarding what people do to food, that scene's okay. We'll do that one.
Yeah. Well, I only want to do that. Any other food interaction in the movie, I don't want to do with you guys. Like all that other stuff. Like, I mean, whatever happens with you guys, you know, whatever happens over there, like you can play with the other food scenes, but I just want to taste the ramen. That's all.
I don't think you can do it.
Well, I'd like to find out a couple things that are sort of interesting about the movie and your personality types. I'd like to know what through line or what story or vignette you were the most attracted to. You know, not necessarily like, oh, I would want to see a whole movie of just that thing. Maybe that is the case, but I also like to hear like what storyline were you kind of happy when they came back to it, or if they jumped to something that was like seemingly unrelated, or if you enjoyed that at all.
I really, really loved the grandma vignette. Like, I think that was like I thought it was the funniest part. Like the old lady going into
Who was
the
mushing up the stuff at the grocery store? Yeah.
And just
I
how
forgot
like
of that one.
crazy that escalates to.
Yeah.
You know what I think that was?
It was
I
great.
thought that was. You know what I think that was, and you guys can. It was a fly, because then when he swats her with the fly swatter, I'm like, oh yeah, to that person, clearly it must seem like it's a fly, because it's just pressing and touching all the food and going from one thing to another and like really whatever. So in my mind, whoever wrote that section, or if it's just the one writer, it's the personification of a fly.
Yeah, well, that
And
is
then
just like we've all seen old ladies like do that to fruit in the supermarket, you know?
she
Like
wasn't
I
that
think
old.
someone took like a pet peeve of theirs, like seeing someone in the like touching all the fruit,
Yeah.
and then just was like, what if it was to this extreme?
And you know what's insane? Like now that I'm remembering the little side,
And like I just can't get like that one moment where he's like looking around the corner and she like crosses through the aisle so quick. Like that's such a smart shot. Like that was like another thing. It's like the way that they framed it all was just so smart.
I just now that I'm starting to remember those parts of the movie, like that was a good chunk of movie that like avoided the main plot, and that's what started it, because it was the lady doing the touching in the grocery store, and then that goes into the grocery man going to the restaurant to try to scam the old guy, and then that scene at the end of that scene, it goes to the man running back home to his dying wife. Those are 3 different movies that happen in sequence.
Well, don't forget about the scene early on where the businessmen are embarrassed of the guy who orders all the weird stuff.
No, like it was because like they all didn't know what to order because they weren't familiar with French food, and then like the lowest of the low of them is like so like educated in French cuisine that like he makes them all look like chumps with their soleil and salad.
Not only that, but it's also super disrespectful of not following what the head guy is doing, right? That's a hierarchy thing. Because I even kind of looked into that as well, you know, and it's a cultural thing, like, but especially like I guess in Japan, of just like, you know, if one person orders, you know, if the head honcho orders a thing, then it's kind of like, yeah, everyone just kind of order the same thing, right? I love that he said Heineken, right? I love that it was that specific. Like, I'll have a beer, Heineken.
See,
But
yeah,
yeah,
I
and then
thought I didn't even think Michaela's thing, her statement was happening, but now that you say it, it does seem very clear that that was happening. I was kind of more on the same page with Dino, thinking, his thoughts.
well, it was a combination of both because the menu is in English or French. It doesn't even have Japanese on it. So clearly, it's like a high-end kind of restaurant, and so you kind of have to know what you order. But at the same time, um, I think it's both. I think it's the ideal of like the young guy is versed in French cuisine or the Western cuisine, because then you have the lady that's trying to teach the young women how to eat Western food and like be polite
Yeah.
and proper, but you have the Westerner just slurping it up, which is a form of
Japanese thing.
respect or whatever to the cook by slurping the noodles.
And and just like the other scenes that we talked about, there's a third scene right after the spaghetti scene where we see our first view of the food fucking.
I
So-
will also say the young, before we get to the food fucking, I guess the young guy at the end that's ordering, and then he's ordering like really expensive drink or like, oh, bring the Salumier, which is also like from Heineken to like whatever the wine or
Well,
something.
that's like the joke. Like that's
Yeah.
the total joke of it. Like that's what's so brilliant about that. Like that whole exchange, and it's almost like a parable where it's like you see all these people who are conforming to like this boring thing just because they're just so unsure and they want to make sure that they like impress someone, and like the person who's like has the least to lose is just like, no, I'm fully going to enjoy myself.
Well,
y'all can
that
like,
and maybe just we've all been that broke person like, oh, free food, okay. like boss is paying for it. Oh, well then, like, yeah, you're kind of shy, but once like that one person, like, it's like, okay, someone else is paying for this. All right, I'm not gonna like go too crazy, right? Like the boss or whatever is like, oh, I'm buying, get whatever, and everyone's kind of being like a little low key on it, and then that one person is just like, let me get this, let me get that, let me get the most expensive thing on the menu. Then it's game. It's like he ordered it. All I gotta do is order something that is slightly cheaper than what the most expensive thing was, just so I don't look like that guy. Oh man, I forgot. Yeah. Some of that I even forgot.
There is
We
this
got the
thing that I
zombie.
want to talk to you guys about. There's a scene that kind of takes the tone of the movie, I felt like, into like the Amelie territory. And that's when the biggest shift happened for me. And I was like, all right, everything might be sort of safe in this film. It's when it was like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, when all those like boxcar hobo dudes all knew like the finer touches of cooking from their sensei. Like to me, I was like, oh, this is like a certain level of comedy they're doing right now. You know what I mean? That
It
these
was
guys,
very Chaplin-esque, right?
Yeah.
Like the
And
hobo
that's like
breaking
another
into the
thing that
kitchen.
oof, sorry. It's just like that's another thing about this film that I thought was so interesting because as much as it's celebrating food, it's also celebrating film history in its odd way. Like the score is consistently from like other films. Like
Yep.
one of the main themes, like I can't remember what it's from, but it's from like a big 40s movie. And like a lot of like the little things that happen are straight homages to like really well-known films. But
Yeah,
they're done
they even had music that was Lone Ranger music from the Lone Ranger, right? So there were not only just like a lot of Western tropes, but the actual like Western cowboy tropes as well. But they claimed the Lone Ranger music and a bunch of other ones like that. So yeah, the music I thought was used very well as well.
Like, I just can't figure out how, like, they managed to make such a beautiful marriage of these two things. You know, like the love of film and the love of food, and they created Tampopo. You know, like, it's like, how did they do that? That's so
It
cool.
also felt like this lady was going through these boss battles. Like she gets to the one place and they like accuse her of trying to steal the recipe, and she becomes competition. And then it's like, yeah, I'm gonna get you. Let's have an eat off. I'm gonna come to your
But
place
then,
and see if your food is any good. If it's not, then what's next is I'm gonna hurt someone or whatever the plan was.
but then that was a dream or it was a nightmare. Like what happened?
Yeah,
So then she's like,
that was a
"Ah!"
that was a full on dream. But like there were like these boss battles that
Oh,
she
yeah.
had to like conquer each time. You know what I mean? In that way, it was kind of like an anime. But yeah, the movie takes you in and out of like three different worlds. Really, there's the book, and then there's the I guess the A storyline, and then there's the gangster thing that's happening.
Or is this? I mean, the gangster talks about your life flashing before your eyes like a movie. Is this someone's life, like the whole thing flashing before their eyes, and that's why it's just like, is this what someone's life would be? Like a combination of you as a kid, kind of, growing up, maybe what you read, so that's kind of bleeding into your psyche with like movie genres that you like. Is this just like the split second final movie of someone's life that is just kind of a mix of everything?
And then
It's very cool. It's great
has
writing.
life with the baby.
It does.
Yeah,
And the first
I
thing
mean,
that we noticed.
because we're obsessed with food since we're born. Is that what it is?
Well, I mean, it is something that we need to live, and we've taken food. It's like one of those things that we need as a species, like as an animal, but we've elevated it to such a degree that it is an art form.
I'm sure that baby thought, you know what this needs? Like a ridiculous amount of lemon and salt.
I know. I was like, "Are you trying to show us something?" Right? I'm just like, I don't want to know. I guess we got to watch some of his other movies. Everyone says Tarantino has a foot fetish, so we got to see some of the director writer other movies and see if there's a nipple salt lemon fetish going on in his movies, right?
Like, out of all the things, I think that was the most normal. Out of all the things that, like,
they did, it was the lemon.
Because, like, y'all talking about the lemon and the salt, because y'all...
We're not going to talk about the other shit. No.
No, we're not going to talk about the shrimp.
Well, was that whipped cream? I guess that would have been the most normal. If that was like whipped cream, whatever, I think that's the most normal. But yeah,
I feel like the shrimp was the joke. I think that was the joke, you guys. Like when you
I would hope
that was the
so.
hype man.
Oh yeah,
I would hope
100%.
so.
But like, still, like, how do you like? I don't like the fact that a human being was just like, do you know it'd be sexy to film? Why don't we take 2 live shrimp, put them in a bowl with soy sauce, and suction them?
I'm not gonna lie. I think it was all played seriously. This was the director's way of showing his art, his true art. There's no satire, no jest behind it, and I'll tell you why. Because that egg scene, like no one would have done that in jest. That was not a joke. Someone's into that. I believe all of it. I believe.
So I'm really happy you mentioned.
I don't know where you found the egg thing before in your life. I'm curious because as soon as you saw that happening, you were just like, "Oh no!" Yeah. And I was like, "What?"
I forgot about the egg thing. Every now and then you guys mention something. I was like, "Oh my god, that's another thing that I forgot that was so big in the movie itself."
So the egg scene, I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually one of the more famous scenes of the film. That's the one that's kind of been described to me in like sort of awfully as people like say, "Oh, did you see this movie?" or "You should check this movie out," or different little things I've seen of the film. The egg scene keeps popping up, and I didn't realize that until I actually saw it. And I was like, "Oh, I've seen this like in clip shows and stuff before. Like this is that weird egg scene." I never thought I would even find this movie. I saw the clip show so long ago, but it's an interesting scene, and it feels like some what do you call that art when you just like the kind of art performance art. It felt very performance art.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
And it just sort of happens. And the more it happened, because of like the colors and the yellow nature of the egg, I wanted to follow it for as long as it was going to happen. To be honest with you, I felt like it overindulged itself because I'm thinking the directors explained to the actors, just get it as many times as you can. We're going to film it. I was like, how many takes did they do of this? You know what I mean? Like I was thinking more like a pilot that's been made.
That day must have been for the actors.
I was,
Because like it's beautiful.
yeah, I was
It's
thinking,
like, I
especially
always
for the girl. Like, what is the breakdown for the role? Like, okay, I'm the gangster's girlfriend. Yeah, I could. Okay, we kind of have a little like food, romantic, sex thing. Like, oh, live shrimp, egg play. Like
Don't
so
forget
many
the
things.
oysters either, you guys. Like there was some
Yeah,
serious
that
stuff
was
happening.
Yeah. But I was speaking specifically for that one, the girlfriend of just like, and then I mean, I'm sorry, that scene is up there with when Harry met Sally of the orgasm, and then I'm having faking it, like her breaking that egg at the end. I'm just like, I mean that's.
And
I don't know.
and you
That's
know-
an Oscar.
you're right though, because like the yolk with like the color of her lips, there's something so beautiful and visceral about that though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
were
were
both
great.
in white.
But
which
but
is-
but you know that she does not love him because she did not swallow.
Oh my god.
You proud of yourself?
No, I'm not. Also, I did not want to see that happen. As soon as she made the noise, like it's gonna come out, isn't it? I think it's funny that we're talking about the movie without actually talking about the movie.
I'm on an chicken egg ranch. My grandparents were chicken egg ranch farmers. Never have I thought, you know what's sexy? Snowballing egg yolks back and forth. Like never, like and I'm around eggs. I went and got some
I
fresh
promise
eggs
you,
today.
there is a group of people in the world who think this is the sexiest thing that you could ever imagine.
Yeah, and
Well,
they do, and because of those people, I got a carton full of eggs that I'm not gonna touch till they're bad.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a one take thing? I would hope so because they were wearing white. So I would hope like
That's a part
broke,
of it.
and they did it, and then it's like I think we could do another take. And it was like we only had this one white thing. It would take too long to like get dry clean. Let's move on. Because I'm just thinking like I get the raw egg. I get Rocky did raw egg. I get this, but when it's a little like back and forthy, I'm just like. Maybe one time, I get it. You're super drunk, stoned, on drugs. Let's try it. I just can't see myself being like runny egg back and forth in our mouths, back and forth. That's gonna be hot. Let's keep doing it. I was like, how many more times are we gonna be doing this? And yeah, it was. And she's even kind of looking like, am I getting the egg in his mouth? Like he's kind of taller. We're doing this weird little dance, egg dance. But you know what? I was just like, I guess I gotta keep watching this movie because egg in mouth today. What's tomorrow? Oh, an oyster. What? And then the blood. I'm just like, it just kept. And then So I don't know if we want
So
to.
we
jump
know
to
what scenes have made Dino uncomfortable.
No. So it didn't make that didn't make me uncomfortable. That was like what I was all for it in a spectator kind of way, not like I want to try this. But the one that made me uncomfortable is the soft shell turtle scene.
Oh yes. Oh god.
That's the one thing that I was literally like, I need to read the subtitles, but I can't look at it. And I mean, I've been a part of butchering animals before here with lambs and pigs and cows, and I've kind of helped. But but sometimes just watching something on the TV is something else. And poor turtle, like, and I think also certain animals, because that was very disturbing for me. And well, I have killed animals, but the animals that I've butchered, no, well, I guess if you count fish, okay, fine. But those other animals that I helped butcher, I didn't kill. I was just a spectator, and I stood around. And I probably anyway, but.
Well,
Yeah,
wait,
go
did
ahead.
everybody get out their
Like,
favorite?
now I can't suggest this to anybody. Like everything
What?
else was
Say that
fine. The
again?
turtle was like, but I was like, oh man, fuck.
Yeah, the turtle thing was the only like kind of disturbing part of it.
Did everybody express like the scene or the storyline they were most attracted to in this thing?
I don't think I had one though.
Yeah, I didn't say anything, but I really enjoyed. There's two scenes that I really liked. One was mentioned by Dino, and that was the old lady touching things. Because I just found that hilarious, and I was like, that's the reason I never worked in a grocery store. There's weirdos like that. Then Michaela giving the explanation of like it could have been like a fly type thing.
It was opposites. You mistook Michaela and me, but yeah, go on.
Oh, okay, then Dino said that. I was like, well, that makes sense because the out was him like swatting it, and then like there's no explanation. Like it's just like cut to the next scene, like improv. So that one, and then of course, I mean, I'm jumping ahead here, but just the fact that like she got like her place, redone, remodeled, and it was so beautiful. It looked like a place in Silver Lake,
Yeah.
and and she had the crowd there, and for some reason, a lot of people there like pork. Like that's a popular thing in the menu.
Yeah.
But I just enjoyed that, like just like how old is this movie again?
1985.
86.
85.
Yeah, 85.
So for 85 to be like that place looked janky and then it looked beautiful.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when they go to that scene where they show the remodel. I was like, this doesn't even feel like the same movie anymore. This feels like a different film now. Because that's like how nice the place was. It felt like you said, it felt like a modern place. And
That's what
still
2 million yen. Is that what it was? Or what? No, not yen. It is yen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what 2 million yen in 1985 gets you.
Yeah, nice little colorful backlighting for your succulents, an actual cash register. That threw me. I was like, that's an actual cash register. Like in the
Didn't
store.
you like want to work in that kitchen? Didn't you like want to like be in that kitchen, like making stuff? I did. It was like a French kitchen in the middle of Japan.
Copper pans and pots in the background all of a sudden. Like, yeah.
Also, I mean, I'm jumping ahead here, but like, what was the purpose of the dude running towards the truck? Like he wasn't saying anything. He was just running, and he knew he was
That's
going to catch it.
what happens in like the American Western movies, where like the cowboy have to go on the trail, and then like the little kid's like, goodbye.
I was just about to say
Shane. Exactly.
Shane is what it is. It's Shane.
He wasn't even shouting. He was just like,
but like
I give up.
No, but that's what little.
They've done that in other movies too. Like I feel like maybe they did that in The Searchers, if I'm not mistaken, with John Wayne. They definitely done it in like John Ford movies for sure. Shane, I do believe, did it, but Shane, he was yelling Shane, which made it more emotional. But it's kind of a trope.
Well, and because
go to
Shane
the
was
next village to
wounded
see the
also.
sushi chef, Pilgrim.
It's definitely a Western situation. It's it's Magnificent Seven even. He assembled a crackpot team to save a town.
Yeah. And everyone has like their own kind of speciality.
Yep, that's right.
So good.
I thought he was still. I thought he was still going to be like, hey, so do you? I thought I thought you guys went on a date. Are you really gonna leave her now that she's got the restaurant up and running, right? I mean, that's very clean.
Good home.
Yeah, that's very Clint Eastwood and Pale Rider and a bunch of other ones,
Yo
where it's like,
Jimbo.
yeah, kind of tantalizing, like are they or are they not? But at the end, he's still kind of like, I just gotta keep going, you know?
I got another town to save, man. I gotta get this
Yeah,
tanker. I gotta pick up my paycheck from this tank.
yeah. What's the next place that he's gonna watch? If it's like your Jimbo,
What did
then
you
what?
say when we saw it? It was so fucking great. You said like some kind of like food. You said a food truck or something, but it was great.
The next lady's gonna be a katsu cart.
Cart.
Katsu cart. Like the best katsu this side of Tokyo.
Oh.
Which like was a
I thought it was
Good
funny.
thing it was ramen and not something else, right? Like that would, yeah.
yeah.
Like it's either way too simple or way too hard. Like imagine if you like walked into a McDonald's, that would just be like, I don't know how you could make this better. But
You gotta sweeten the pickle.
I'm gonna bring up the zombie mom because that's again a whole other thing that.
Well, before you bring up the zombie mom, I want to make a quick comment.
Okay.
I was going to say to you guys, at any given moment of watching this movie, did you ever think there might be a zombie invasion or a vampire invasion? Because it kind of felt like that's a possibility in this world. At some point, this whole thing could be disturbed by just it being the last act being a zombie film.
Not gonna lie, not zombie. I thought it was gonna be straight up debauchery at the end of the movie, where all the characters that we met beforehand suddenly go into this ramen shop. It's a moment of jovial shit, and then the gangster shows up and they all start fucking the food. That's what I thought was gonna happen. I thought, everyone's gonna be like, "Yay, the ramen shop! It's so great, it's so nice." Then the gangster shows up with his wife, and then the girl that he met at the oyster place, and then they all just start fucking the food.
That's the exact plot of Crash.
Nice. Oscar winner, Crash.
Oscar
winner Crash. Yeah, man. Like I thought that might be a possibility too at one point.
So, but seriously, Jason, was it after Zombie Mom that you're like, there might be a zombie apocalypse, or were you kind of like before the Zombie Mom, you were kind of like, this might just end up becoming a zombie?
Yeah, because it was so all over the place, and it was giving me some Everything Everywhere vibes. That new movie that's out that I haven't seen just from the trailers. I'm like, this movie's going to be wild, and then this is a Japanese film. Like, this thing is just wild.
Also, how did she change clothes so quick?
Magic.
What? Magic?
Yeah, suspension of disbelief, I believe is what it's called.
Okay.
Oh, you mean when she changed the outfits for the date or whatever?
Yeah, they put the little.
Have you not seen all the TikTok magicians and Instagram magicians that are just
oh my god, that was another scene that thankfully didn't go too awry after that date, where both characters have a moment, thankfully nothing too crazy, regarding each other's underwear.
Because it's a thing, and like that's like the whole thing is they're pining so hard for each other to the point where everyone's like, "Can you just kiss already?" Oh my god!
No,
so like they both have a moment where they like think of what could happen in like a really weird way.
I expected that scene from like the gangster scene where if like you found their brassiere and there was a soy sauce stain on it. That I would have, but this was the normal part of the movie. This was the normal part of the movie. So I thank God that it didn't go as I thought it was gonna go somewhere else. Thankfully,
yeah,
no.
we all thought. I mean,
so now we know JP's lines.
Yeah. And he's in the bathtub with his like hat on and everything, and then like it's like he he's like, let me comb myself and put my hat back on. My wet hair is still in the bath. I'm just like,
But
you
here's
do
the
you,
question:
man.
did it look wrong on that character to have his hat on in the bath? The answer is no. That like you
Yeah.
don't question it at first, and then you're like, wait a second.
Yeah, was I the only person that thought when he smelled the comb he was gonna do some weird shit to it?
Yes.
Yes. No.
I had no
Sorry.
clue what was going to happen with that comb.
Or
You
with
know-
the hair at that point. Once that happened, but the only thing I could think was like, they're the least crazy. If we're going back to the idea that it's a type of herald or whatever, those were kind of the base themes. So you want to be closest to reality, if you know, in the whole Tampopo, kind of universe of just like we want to kind of keep it somewhat in realism. But yeah, when he pulled that hair out, I was like, oh no, this is gonna go. this is gonna be another fetish that I find out that is, I guess, a thing of comb hair.
I like this world so much. I call it the TCU, the Tampopo Cinematic Universe.
There you go. Or
Yeah.
I would just go with ramen, right? Ramen is that? Yeah.
I mean,
The
listen,
ra-
at one point I was watching this film and I was thinking I may not ever see this thing again. And by the end of it, it's like I have to watch it again. I owe it to myself.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of those movies where you miss something and maybe the story structure makes more sense the second time you see it, because everything else in the film is so deliberate, which leads me to my next point. We talked about so much about the story and we could keep talking about this thing, but I feel like the cinematography in this movie is used to tell the story pretty well. What did you guys think of the cinematography?
Oh my gosh, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. Like everything, like I said this earlier in the review, everything you can tell was done with intention. Like the way that they set up the shots, like how the shots worked, like they really like I can't imagine this director not breaking down each and every single image that he wanted to be seen in this, because like he got everything he needed.
Yeah.
I was really impressed.
Yeah.
So many close-ups, just so many close-ups. Yeah, like I know, as some like there's so many like face close-ups, and then so many just like food close-ups as well. For sure.
It's intimate
And
in
then,
that way.
huh?
I said it's intimate in that way.
Yeah, and then there's the fight scene, which also, how cool is this?
Like out of nowhere, right?
The silhouette, like I could have watched that for 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
It made me think a little bit also of They Live, right? Of just like that back alley fight scene. Because the first time around, the first fight scene, I was like, oh, this is very artistic. You aren't seeing the fight, you're just seeing the Tampopo watching the fight and reacting, and people being like thrown around and all that. I was like, well, that could be a couple different reasons why they do that. Just like build tension, and also just like if your actors aren't good fighters, you just show the off people. But then there's this like beautiful fight scene of silhouettes in a tunnel that kind of keeps on going forever. And then it's like, okay, we're under the overpass. And then you're like, okay, this is kind of goofy now. And then it's like, you know what we need? A giant zoom out helicopter, because it's
Yeah.
true drones. Of
That
just
I
like,
was cracking up when I saw that. That actually, because of the camera work, it was so silly. It's like, let's make this an action movie for a minute.
Well, and it was like, wait, you need a helicopter budget for your movie? Oh, I guess it must be this real epic scene, or that it's really gonna get into like the movie. It's like, no, this is goofy fight scene, and then at the and just pull back. Like, I don't know, it was great. I loved it. I loved the cinematography.
As great as that helicopter zoom out shot was, that shot scared the fuck out of me, because they do that right before they cut to the weird shit. they do these dynamic shots right before the weird shit happens. So I thought, oh my god, we're gonna go back to the food fucking again. So that scene gave me anxiety. That shot alone. I think I said it while we watched it. I was like, they're gonna go back to the food fucking.
You did.
I was like, oh my god.
He was waiting on it.
Yes,
I would say towards the ending, basically when he's like walking out of the place, for some reason with the music and the cinematography, for some reason it gave me Star Wars vibes.
Yeah. Well, maybe all the white there at the very end, and yeah.
Yeah, there was several of those like cross and diagonal wipes were there. I did see a few of those.
This might be a question for JP, but for everyone, did anyone get, because he brought up kind of the one of the parts, get any Army Hammer vibes in the movie? Remember Army Hammer, guys?
Yeah, I remember Army Hammer. What do you mean?
With the oyster scene with like the blood dropping on the oyster, and then at the end the girl is licking the blood, and it's a sexual thing, and that was the whole Army Hammer situation of him wanting to eat his partners and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, I didn't get that vibe, but I see what you're saying. I thought it was dope, man.
No, I love the oyster scene.
I love the blood on the oysters. It looked beautiful. It looked like it was wonderful. There's probably some weird symbolism I couldn't catch.
I just thought it was crazy because in the oyster scene, oddly enough, the man was kind of the normal one at first, but then also the girl
nothing normal about that, man.
Like because he does the weird okay, now you're eating out of this girl's hand. That's kind of creepy. But then she one ups him and starts licking the blood off his face. And I was like, oh my god, she's a fucking freak too. And all those oyster ladies in the shore thought the same thing. Like, holy shit, she's a fucking freak too. So when it comes to that, it was consensual. But yeah,
it was a great thing of showing. They did a lot of that also. I think of them pulling out of a shot of almost like a crowd reaction. So there was a lot of that where you think it's like, oh, this is very intimate of a setting or of a situation or of a scene, and then boom, they're doing that in front of a bunch of people type of thing, because I mean, again, the fight thing, and then it pulls out. This one is oyster blood, thing, and it pulls out, and they're all the other oyster divers just checking them out, are they thinking this is weird, or she does this to all the guys, or this guy comes here every day?
It's just a nice moment of levity. It just gives a nice moment of levity, and it does show us, the audience, is oh no, there's people in this world who are basically on the same boat as us. It's what the fuck?
Yeah. The only time that I was kind of legit scared, and I was like, please don't go there, is when one of the old dude is like, if you want to know the broth, come back and just bring me 30,000 yen. And then he's starting to pull her into the dark, and I was like, no, don't take it there. This movie has been great so far. It's been weird, but it's been great. Don't go. And then it's just like, oh, there's a crack in the wall. I was just like, whew. I was getting really worried there for a second.
Especially when she says lines like, how am I supposed to learn how to do ramen in the dark? It's like, oh no. Oh no. But yeah, no. It was very cheeky. I think what would have been more somewhat sexually implied is if it wasn't a crack, it was just straight up a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
But the movie didn't do that. For all its moments where it went there, it didn't go there in that scene.
And I'm glad. We're all better for it, I think.
Mhm.
I just thought in the movie, you know, since it was going so crazy, we're gonna get, I don't know, an Attack of the Killer Tomatoes type of situation, or
Yeah.
maybe even the Beetlejuice, you know, where like the hand comes out and grabs the people, you know.
Well, there
Like,
was the zombie mom. We've kind of talked around it, but there was.
I
I'm just
almost
like,
feel like that's like spoiler territory, but let's dive into Zombie Mom and then we can go into
I
final
mean,
thoughts.
He wasn't a
if
zombie.
you've
He was
made
just
it
really
an
sick.
hour of us talking about this movie and you haven't seen the movie, I want to be your friend because kudos for you making it through an hour of us kind of dissecting this film and you not having watched this film already.
I thought it was
So it's a
not.
thing. It's a Japanese. A lot of it is Japanese kind of culture and just like working yourself to death, basically, right? Overworking yourself, which I guess can be any culture, but I think in Japan they have more specific term for it and stuff like that. But I just like the fact of just like she's dying, or if anyone's dying and you find that one thing, like if someone's OCD or whatever, it could be like, hey, the shirts in your closet are not in order from color, or whatever, and the person's like, I gotta go do this, and then for the mom, it's like, hey, we need to eat, and it's like, I love to cook, gotta go cook. So yeah, but that's where I thought when that happened, I was like, oh, something really messed up is gonna there's gonna be Attack of the Killer Tomatoes or so. That's like, how much more can they hide in that kind of situation?
Yeah, no, I was
Um,
expecting more extreme human on human violence throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, and it turned out it was an oddly sweet scene. But isn't that crazy? Like the thing that the husband, because the scene starts with him running back home. There's a sense of urgency. He's there with the doctor. The doctor straight up tells him like, it don't look good. And the thing that in his mind to get her back to going is to cook. And I was like, excuse me?
Well, it's a basic need, and like that's like a woman's role for like the longest
Right.
time. So of course, like the husband would think that.
Oh, God.
and then
See, I was kind of
devastated.
afraid of that sentiment when I was watching it. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's 85. Are they playing that game or like what's happening here? So I was kind of kept my ear to the ground for that. That's not the vibe I got. Tell me, Michaela, or anybody else, if that's the vibe that you got. To me, it just felt like it was a twisted, dark joke, and the twist comes at the end, and it turns it into something very sweet. Where the husband understands what, like JP said, with the adrenaline shot for his wife would be. But
Well, not only
also
that,
in context to it being a food film, I just figured it was her love for cooking for her family, providing for her family. That was like her joy.
100% what that was.
Yeah, thankfully that's how the scene plays out at the end. Because that's what I thought too. I was like, oh, this is such a sexist moment. But then you see her actually taking pride and joy at the fact that they're having a family meal together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
kind of
so
like the
crazy.
giving
It's like,
tree.
and then she just dies. It's like, oh, okay.
And then the father is having this breakdown moment, which is beautifully acted. And he's telling the kids, eat, focus on this meal while it's still hot. And then there's the irony that, his wife is there, but he's like trying to keep things as normal as possible for his kids in the moment. And it's like, that's either some really good writing or some really good acting. Because I felt all of it.
Maybe we didn't see the same subtitles. Because then he's like, yeah, eat. This is your mom's last meal that she cooked. So it's like, it had all these levels of just like, kind of eat it while it's hot, but also like, your mom literally just basically killed herself making you a meal.
It's a wonderful scene, man. It's sad. Yeah. It's funny. There was a scene in here that actually made me a little emotional for a split second. I forget what it was, but I was like, that's a moment. It was like in the last 10 minutes or so.
There were a few of those scenes.
That previous scene, that was basically a delete. That was a deleted scene from Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
That scene totally would have fit into that movie. Whereas like
I
the
was-
mom is making chocolate or something.
There were some kind of like definitely there were some kind of sexist tones and all that. But am I wrong, or there were some really strong female characters in this?
No,
Like,
100%. Like, there's even like a point at the end where like the guy's like, "I didn't think a woman could do this," and she's like, "Well, here I am."
yeah. So
like, they're trying to play against it, and like this is like also during like what would technically in the US be like the second wave of feminism. Like that's when like Stein and all of that. So it's an interesting time in history where you can see that they're acknowledging that there's more, but there's still very traditional roles that are expected to be filled that we haven't
even like
gotten away from
yeah,
yet.
because there was like we need to come up with a new name, and then the guys are even the one that recommend just naming it after her, a woman's name, and it was like a woman's name for a restaurant, and everyone's like
Dandelion, because like her name means dandelion essentially.
Yeah.
So like I feel like that was like a symbolic thing that like I wonder if we like Googled what dandelions mean in Japanese culture, like I think it would probably have an entirely new way of like coloring how this character is. You know, like she's supposed to be the breath of fresh air. Like,
and the restaurant is all white at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They even talked about like feminine, right? Like something so feminine, and that dandelions are normally seen as kind of a feminine thing anyway. So,
well, that like, I also thought it was interesting that they were like using a lot of spring ingredients, and it was raining a lot. So I wonder if that's like a big part of it too. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was nice, and I guess it makes her stronger that they were kind of will they, won't they kind of thing. Like, is she more in love with him than he is with her? But like that whole kind of parting ways between them was just kind of like, yeah, I got this. Yeah, like it wasn't because they even had like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you helping me? And then it's like, why are you working on this so hard, right? And it was one of those like it's not necessarily I'm doing it because it's the only way I can see you type of thing. So I think that's kind of a good thing, right? Like it's not just like I'm doing this because I love you type of thing. But it's like I'm doing this for myself, you know.
Yeah, 100%. So if that's everybody's thoughts about that matter, I'd like to just jump into our final thoughts of Tampopo. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and lead us off, and we can follow all the way around this mother lover clockwise even. How about that? Okay, so my final thought of Tampopo, it's a really simple one. Really enjoyed this movie, had no clue what I was getting into. Halfway through the movie, I had no clue what I was even into. Still, it's wonderful. It's worth repeated viewings. I think it is a artistic achievement. I think it's really great and firm direction. It made me have all the feels that you can make in a movie, and you just never know where they're coming from or if they were going to play you like a fiddle like that. So I will say, whoever directed this film, I'll look more into it. I'll check out their films, and I would recommend this movie. Actually, I would recommend it to almost anyone, just to force them, any adult, adult. I would force them to watch it just so that they would have this very visceral experience of this film, whether they, love it, hate it, or want to kill it or marry it or whatever that game is. That's my take on the movie, and I'd love to get you guys a final thought.
All righty. So my final thought is, in ways, I wish I paid more attention towards the beginning of the film and I wasn't so distracted. And in many ways, I'm glad I was distracted because I was just like, yo, what is this? But it is definitely a film that you have to pay attention to the subtitles and at the same time the movie, but really the subtitles, so you get like some context of what's going on, because there's a lot going on very fast at many moments. So I would recommend this movie at anybody that was able to watch and rewatch Parasite, because you got to watch subtitles there too. So if you can do that, hey, You can do this movie.
Well,
Oh.
okay, cool. I'll go ahead and go. I think that this is a wonderful, wonderful film. I think it's going to be kind of something that I'm going to probably revisit more than once. I don't know who I would suggest this to. Like, I think this would be how I would like figure out if you're like on my level. It's like, do you know what Tampopo is, and can I trust you with this knowledge? You know, like it's like not something that like you could just suggest to people, but if you like knew that they are like someone who like really enjoys cinematography as an art form and can like, you know, like it is something to be shared just with the right people. And I really liked this film. So that's JP's turn now.
I do recommend the movie. To whom? I say to your loved ones, closest to you, and those that you wish harm upon. This movie is for everyone. That's it.
Really? That's not what I was expecting.
I dare you to watch this film with your mom.
You know
I
what's,
want to see the YouTube reaction video of you watching this with your mom.
you know what's insane? She would be the one. She'd be the one enjoying this movie.
Like I
She
can
would
already see her
scream.
and Ceci just having a field day.
They would scream. They would cackle. They would call me a prude. And they would want to see more food fucking. Oddly enough.
Did you say want to see more what?
I'm from a family of degenerates, so that's all.
You said they would want to see more what?
Food fucking.
Oh, that'd be their thing, huh?
All right.
Well, that explains a lot more about your feeling of this movie now, actually.
Yeah, I guess I'll finish it off with final thoughts. But hey, guys, I think we got the next review thing for Oye Dimelo. Oye Dimelo presents I dare you to watch this with your mom, or I dare you to watch this with JP's mom. And it's just like, okay, we're gonna watch this movie and have the live reactions of the moms, just because yeah, that would be great. I think Oye Dimelo needs to pick that up for the next project.
Like pausing the movie, bringing your dad in, and being like, "Why don't you do that?" Just to watch him squirm. That's not wrong. No, wait,
nice.
come back.
So on that note, I guess that closes out Tampopo. Dino?
I guess my final thoughts, but everyone should already know my final thoughts is I really enjoyed this. I love this movie, and I would recommend. I guess the easiest way. This is a Criterion Janus film, so like if you know someone's like, "Hey, I'm really into Criterion Collection movies," then I'll be like, "Well, I got a movie for you." Yeah. So yeah, this is up there with House. Like it's just like so weird but so lovable of a film. So, and I'd recommend that to whoever.
I thought the same thing, Dino. Like it is definitely in relation to House. I was like, I would recommend this to anyone who would who wants to see House light. That's
actually. So for literally final thoughts of recommendation, I know exactly who. I don't think the movie had ended, and talking about family, the first person I texted was my sister-in-law because she was learning Japanese and all this other stuff, and she's really into the culture and stuff like that. And I was like, "Have you heard of this film?" And she's like, "Yeah, I've heard it, but she hadn't seen it yet." But yeah, so I guess I recommend it to family. That was my first recommendation, and yeah.
There you go. So you're already 10 steps ahead. One last thought before we go. Just like House, I remember we watched a documentary after the movie. I did find a documentary about the making of this film. If you guys are interested, it's just called "The Making of Tampopo." So there are some stories about this thing. I guess that's it for our review of Tampopo. I do have a question for Steve. Steve, what do you got for us next week?
Next week, I don't know why you asked me, because I went the week before with Polly. I don't know if you remember, but you should have that question to Dino. Dino, what do you got for us next week?
Well, I kind of got surprised because I missed last week that it was my turn. But there are two movies. I'm kind of behind on the Oscar-nominated films. So it's two Oscar-nominated films, and Oscars have already gone by. But these are two films that were nominated this year. I didn't get to see them. I don't know which order you have them in. So just you show the order, the picture, I guess. And
Either way, I bet these movies slap.
Oh, too soon. Coda and Belfast. So yeah, there are two movies that I have not seen, but I want to watch both of them. So yeah. So number one is Coda, and two would be Belfast, depending what you decide.
Can you give a short description of each, or no?
I don't think we know, right?
Oh, I definitely don't. Just like everyone, I never watched the Oscars until Twitter told me to. So,
well, I think there's slapping in both movies, actually.
yeah.
All right.
Coda means children of deaf adults. So that's what that is basically about. If you hadn't know, one of the children of deaf parents can actually also speak. So it's just how do you kind of cope with that kind of situation. And Belfast is about a bell that you have to ring, and so you got to be fast because you got to ring the bell at the proper time. So it's like Belfast, like you got to be as fast as it takes to go and ring the bell whenever it has to be rung.
Weird. I thought it was just a shipping town in Ireland or some shit, but yeah, that
I guess. And
all right, so
not about not about the Catholic and Protestant breakout freaking war. Yeah, I don't know. One of those is what Belfast is actually about. All right, so yeah, so one would be Coda and two would be Belfast. So I'm gonna count it down from 3. 3, 2, 1. Anyway, 3, 2, 1. Okay. I guess Coda has it, right? Because you're one, Michaela. Okay. Yeah, Coda won. So there we go. Much love to everyone.
There we go. So for Michaela, JP, El Dondino, me, Steve, that's TV, then Jason Echols. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.